Yes, everybody. This is the DFS Army Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Flex Matt. He is one Brandon Adam, and we are back finally with rookies. We've been actually ready to go for a couple weeks. It's just the schedules of us have been a little bit tough. Doing this, it takes a lot out of you just because, we're talking about rookies here, 2024 rookies, and they excited us. They've been exciting us for quite a long time, Brandon. We've been talking about it all year, and now we're here, and we're going to give our 2024 rookie rankings. What we're going to do is we're going to do 5 QBs. Easy. That's easy, it seems like. The names are there, but the rank may surprise you. Who knows? We're going to do 10 wide receivers because top 5 just isn't good enough with this class. And who knows? Maybe Brandon Adam has a little bit of a cork he's trying to plug up into our rankings here, because I feel like top 10 is a conundrum for everybody. Everybody likes or loves or doesn't like certain people. And then we're going to do top 5 running backs. I've got a name that might surprise you in my top 5. And then top 2 tight ends, which it's almost not even worth talking about them because it's the top 2 guys. If you want to draft somebody else, go take a 3rd round draft pick and go draft or go trade for somebody. Okay, that's probably what we should do later on. Who else in the 3rd round do you want to go and use your 3rd round pick to go trade for? That's what we should probably do. But Brandon Adam, how are you doing tonight? You cracked your tooth.
No, dude, I broke my tooth last night. I had got a schedule an appointment, got an extraction due in a week or so. Had a root canal, and that tooth definitely failed. But yeah, man, we've been talking about this class for a long time. We've been prepping and rebuild squads that we have in Dynasty for this specific draft. We've been, I know you have been going hard to the paint with getting as many picks as you can, especially the 2nd round pick in the rookie draft is so strong this year. There's going to be some legitimate value that's to be had, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, that's it's true. I've been actually waiting for this class for 2 years, and it's kind of tough, or at least 2 years. It's kind of tough because when you talk about the class, hold on, we got a comment here already. Okay, yes, all right, there it is. I can't even click it on because we have technical difficulties, but I love it. Listen, this rookie class we've been waiting for a while. Every year it seems like, oh yeah, well, it's next year's class. Well,
this is the class.
We were a little bit nervous a while ago that Caleb Williams might not come out, but some wide receivers have decided, probably luck, like too good. It's good that they probably decide, like Emeka Egbuka decided to stay another year. Travion Henderson staying another year, probably RB1 in the class.
Oh, he would have been for sure.
Maybe. Injury history didn't look incredible last year, but maybe he needs next year to go. Kind of a Blake Corum-esque. So we got a little nervous, Brendan, but we're here, and you're right. What a monster class. We're going to start with the quarterback position, which I think is maybe but I don't know. Maybe that's a little vanilla. Should we start with the wide receivers? I feel like everybody wants to talk about the wide receivers, Brendan. I think maybe
it's up to you. Yeah, I'm down to talk about the wide. I want to hear your. I want to hear your first top 5, and you could talk about your. Because I know your order is a little bit different than mine, I'm sure. And I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, well, I wasn't prepared for a top 10 out of the gate, but of course I'm ready. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So this one's pretty easy. Marvin Harrison, number 1. I think we're all pretty locked in on that. Size, speed combo, it's just a freak. There's some things that I love about the class. With some specific guys that the pedigree is really there. And with a couple of these pedigree receivers, you can tell why you like them, not just size, but the way that they move off the line. You can tell that they have been coached up on separation at the NFL level. And this goes for the other guy too, who I may mention in my top 10. Who knows? But number 1, Marvin Harrison Jr. Agreed. I think we're pretty consistent in that in our top 5, right?
Yep.
Number 2, Malik Neighbors. Now, this is the name that I wanted to drop back on my list originally, and I know you and I fought about this. And when we fight like
it's hard.
you start to hate me for a little bit, and then it's like, how dare you have Malik Neighbors not top 2? And let me tell you why. Malik, I pushed him to 3 or even 4, a little while ago. That was dumb. I wasn't okay. Here's what it was. When I get to superstar talents,
yes,
what I hate to see on the football field is when they are lazy or take plays off or, okay, I'm not getting the ball, I'm going to run a half-ass route. Okay. But at the same time, I took a look because I coach high school sports and I got kids on my team that are dynamic and they take plays off. And
Sure
why
do.
do they do it? Well, something to them creates the juice that they have. And if it means that they they like to take plays off because they think they're champions and the ball's not coming their way, or hey, I need my full juice for when it is my time. And if they can put out, their stats and everything with Malik Neighbors, I mean, it's pretty well documented how great he is, then okay, maybe he's earned a play or 2 off. Maybe his run blocking can deserve to relax for a play or 2. The spotlight's been on him from get-go. Kayshon Boutte has absolutely dudded out. He's gone.
Yep.
He'll be gone forever. I mean, the kid was never going to make it in the NFL anyway. We gave him the benefit of the doubt here on this podcast. We did. I mean, because he's an LSU receiver. He did play over guys like Neighbors. I mean, it doesn't matter if Kayshon Boutte is an idiot. He did have some great tape, and in cases he was valued as a top end prospect, and he can't get out of his own way. Sometimes with elite players, that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
So you go from taking plays off to now you're smoking the bong or something, you know what I mean?
Or gambling your life away.
And the thing with Neighbors that when I actually, I got rid of it because I'm a coach, I hate to see it. I don't like to see guys take plays off. I hate it. But admittedly, I was never one of those superstar athletes. I was really good at what I did, but I was never God gifted with speed and talent all over the place. So I took a step back, allowed myself to view Neighbors like everybody else does. And here's the one thing I want to talk about Neighbors. And maybe, Brandon, what we should do is from 2, we both should go 3-3, 4-4.
Sure.
That way we can both get a chance to talk about somebody.
Sure. Yep.
But the thing that I found most unique about Neighbors, and I think the Antonio Brown comps are a little unfair. I mean, I know Antonio Brown. I watched him a long time, but I never scouted him in college. We weren't doing this when Antonio Brown was in college. But I went back to watching Antonio Brown's tape in college, and you could just tell. I mean, the guy had unreal start-stop ability. I don't think that's Neighbors' game, but where I agree with what a lot of people say, and you can see it on tape, is Neighbors is literally fast at every point of his route. He has dynamic elite speed at every point of his route. Off the line, if he's cutting in, he's fast on the cut, off the cut, fast down the field. His separation is so elite because of the fact that when he runs his routes, he never decelerates through his route. He's at top speed throughout the entire play. Now, is his routes so Garrett Wilson dynamic? I don't think so.
Yes.
I think Garrett Wilson has better feet and just some abilities that Neighbors really doesn't have, but Neighbors does have that true elite speed in and out of his breaks that makes it absolutely a terror to try to guard this guy. Absolutely. And so what do you got to do? You got to give him a couple yards off. You give him a couple yards off, he's going to eat you alive. So really you got to try to press him. If you can press him, great. If he's taking a play off when you're pressing him, maybe it'll work, right? But the whole idea is that next level at the NFL, there may be a lot of corners that can keep up with him for the entire game, but his speed throughout the entire game is going to make him a complete menace on the football field and in your football or your fantasy football lineups. Brandon, tell me about Malik Nabers.
Just a little bit about Malik Nabers that I love about him is that he has a complete route tree where, listen to this, 41% of his routes are from 0 yards to 9 yards, which is the short burst route, all those slant routes, out routes, whip routes, all these close to the line of scrimmage routes where you need to be technically sound, that he dominated in those routes. In the intermediate routes, that was 26% of his target share. And then with the deep ball, that was 22% of his routes were to the deep ball as well. And in every single metric, he on average was catching above 65% of his targets, no matter what route he was running. He was best at the short routes, and then he was better at completing the deep ball versus intermediate routes. The reason why he was not getting those intermediate routes is because they had that other dude on the other side that was a monster that could catch across the middle and sucked up a lot of those targets that Jalen Daniels was throwing was for those intermediate routes was to Brian Thomas Jr. And we'll talk about him more. He's one of your babies. But I think with the modern NFL, I see Malik Nabers as a guy that can do everything. He's not just a one-trick pony. He is a guy that's going to be able to create on his own, and he's going to be able to execute any kind of offense you want because he can deliver the routes from wherever you want to send them. So that's one thing that's about him that's different than a lot of other players in this draft class. I kind of disagree with the lazy stuff that you talked about, but you know, like you said, when you're a high-end talent, you're gonna get nitpicked to no end. This is our first time talking about him, and once we dive further into it and we start seeing more tape broken down, we're just getting into it right now with these guys. So as of right now, he is closer to Marvin Harrison Jr. for me than a Rome Odunze or a Troy Franklin or Brian Thomas. Just depends on who you like as that third wide receiver. But that's how I have it right now, and I don't see myself moving off Malik Nabers. And if Malik Nabers lands with, let's say he goes to Chargers, they could use him. That if he's paired with an elite quarterback that can actually exploit the whole route tree with him, that's a big deal. If he goes to New York with Danny Dimes, not so much. That kind of makes me upset if he would go there. But yeah, I have him number 2. He's solidly right there, and it's closer to Marvin to me than not. So.
Yeah, Nabers. Everybody talks about this. Malik Nabers is unfortunately in a class with a truly generational wide receiver in Marvin Harrison. So my whole thing is if Garrett Wilson and Malik Nabers were in the same draft, Garrett Wilson to me is a better receiver than Nabers is, but I think Nabers can be just as great. I would still pick Garrett Wilson over him. Now, Marvin, I would go Marvin over Garrett Wilson for obvious reasons. Sure. But I think when you talk into that, 1A conversation, the 1As of the world are Justin Jefferson, Marvin Harrison, Jamar Chase. That's the type of 1As we're talking about. The 1Bs are the Malik Nabers, the Garrett Wilsons, and some of these veterans that kind of fall into
the one thing that people got to understand. He went to LSU as well, and he is the all-time leading receiver in LSU history. And Justin Jefferson went there. Jamar Chase went there. All these other guys that came out, Odell Beckham, and Nabers is number 1. So.
I get it. And maybe he deserved to take a playoff because he's doing so much for the team. So That's okay. Those two guys are going to be talked about enough.
Hmm.
I think it really starts at 3 moving
It
up, and it
does.
probably really starts at 4 or 5, because well, actually, go ahead. You can start off with who your number 3 is.
It's your boy. It's Rome Odunze. I have him at 3. He is, to me, he's actually better deep down the field than I actually previously thought after watching tape on him. But according to the metrics, 35% of his target share came to the deep ball routes, 20 plus yards. 25% came at medium intermediate routes, 10 to 19 yards from the line of scrimmage, and 30% came from short. And behind the line of scrimmage was 8.6%. So he is probably, if you want to talk about the most well-rounded wide receiver in the game right now coming out of college, I don't have I can't tell you that Rome isn't, because he is right there. I just feel that the athleticism of a Marvin Harrison Jr. and the athleticism of Malik Neighbors brings him above him, but Rome Odunze is not anybody to sneeze at, and he is going to make the NFL very happy with his presence coming into the league, and all sorts of just the range of the route tree by him, all over the route, all over the line of scrimmage, X, Z, Y, it doesn't matter. This guy runs it all. He does all the flankers that I love. I'm a big guy. I like the wide receivers that do the flanker and flanker drive routes, that, the Amon Ra's, the Stephon Diggs. Those are the types of routes that I really like, because those compile like crazy in PPR leagues, right? And Rome Odunze is exactly that.
Cup roll.
Yeah, Puka Nakua. Same thing, like very similar.
So I have Rome Odunze 3 as well. And it's pretty easy. To be honest, I almost have him at 2. And I told you this before. Now, again, I hate to scatter misinformation, because I told the group chat and everybody here that supports us that his comp, and this was well before anybody else said it, but he is a bigger Chris Olave. And the thing about Olave is he's never going to be ranked top 2. He's never. That's not his game. Is he fast? Yes. Is he this? Is he that? Yes. Is he an 8.5 in everything he does? Yes. Now, the reasons why you can't mock him too is because he's not a 10 in anything. But to be a stellar everything keeps you on the field, keeps your quarterbacks believing in you. And Penix absolutely believes in him, and he's the guy that turned that entire offense around. Once Rome, because last year you weren't saying it about him, he got better, and
he did get better this year.
At that size, I think is just where you start to grow above some of these other guys that may be a 10 in some certain categories. And I think that also this draft class is going to separate future years. Because and it might ruin it a little, because in past years it's like, okay, this guy's a 4.33, so he's number 1 fast. You can't teach speed, right? Well, the guys that are fast in this class, we'll talk about them later, because they're nowhere near the top here. You have to be 8.5 in a lot of different areas to succumb to the top ranks of this class. Rome Odunze, and I saw a mock, and we talked about this before, but he got mocked 10 to the Jets. And I actually love that, because I don't think a guy like Rome and a guy like Garrett take away from each other.
I don't think so either.
With the right quarterback and the right scheme and the right way of doing things, they're both stellar for years and years and years together. You can't guard one. You got to leave the other. You can't double, triple cover every guy every time. And if you're the Dolphins and you put a guy in motion to where you have to pay attention, now what are you going to do? You absolutely can't do it. So Rome Odunze, number 3. Number 4 is probably where things change up a little bit before us or for us. Now, here's the thing. I am this close to changing this for me, but I have Brian Thomas Jr., number 4.
Nice.
I was this close to changing, and I'll tell you with my 5th pick, but let me tell you a little bit about Brian Thomas Jr. He is scary for his size. He's actually
Yes.
scary because he's 6'4", 205. There's not that mold is not out there. He can still add more. I mean, he's a slender guy, but he moves so effortless. I mean, the way you see this guy move off the line, it's like a gazelle. He's top 3 in touchdowns, led the nation, or top 3 in the nation in touchdowns. So he finds a way to get in the end zone.
Oh, yeah.
He can do it in the red zone. He can do it deep. I think he's the kind of guy that if you give him the lion's share, he becomes CeeDee Lamb. If you make him a number 2, then he's Chris Olave. If you don't treat him well, he's George Pickens. If you find that you're not getting him more involved in your game, then he's worthless. Because the guy needs the ball in his hand. He's incredibly fast, bursty, excellence in route running. When he's using his speed. The thing I didn't like, and there are some negatives about his aggression in his routes. So what he does, and this is kind of unique, he bends. So these guys, I think what they're learning to do now, because they are just such freaks, they're bending at the point of contact. Where you look at the game yesterday with Odell Beckham, and if you're getting swatted on downfield, unless that ball's perfect or you're 6'4", see, this is why I love Brian Thomas Jr. Being 6'4" probably catches that ball where it sailed over Odell Beckham's hand right there. But the problem that scares me is if Brian Thomas Jr. isn't good at using his hands in that middle of the area, is he getting knocked off the route? Is he getting manhandled to where he can't do anything with his speed? Is he that effective in comeback routes? I don't know that, because he is kind of a downfield guy. Now, he is really great in space. He's really good in space. So you can give the ball to him on a screen, and he just finds a way to kind of miss that first read. Brian Thomas Jr. is a freak, and I think that where you're going to be able to discern some of these rankings out is not on talent. It's what the NFL thinks about him. And right now he's being mocked top 15, I think, or top 15. If Brian Thomas Jr. wasn't as good as he is, he would not be mocked in the top half of the first round. It's the same thing that I got to say about Odunze is if the pros that do this, the scouts, the Daniel Jeremiahs, if they're mocking these guys top 15, there's got to be something next level that what we can't see because we're not uber professionals. We know a lot about what we see, and I think the eye test screams the most, and that's why I got Brian Thomas.
I would have. Old Brandon probably would have put Brian Thomas like at 2, but I do think he fits better as the number 2 in the offense because he absolutely smashes man, and when he's singled up, that's what this guy does, and he can get off a press because he's big and strong. He doesn't get stuck on the line at all. But what having Malik Neighbors in that office next to him allowed him a lot of space because especially when zone was happening, people were really trying to keep Neighbors in check. And he feasted on big play after big play with Jaden Daniels. But I get what you're saying. I think the best place for him is literally Buffalo Bills, but that won't ever happen. But I think he's going to end up being a Bengal. I think the Bengals make too much sense because T. Higgins is not going to get paid. So I think that is like the most natural spot. But like you're saying, there is some rumblings that he could go higher than we are projecting him at. For sure.
My personal favorite landing spot for Brian Thomas Jr., because I'm a fan of his, is the Miami Dolphins. If he could find his way on the Dolphins team, the thing about him is, and this is, that's the thing is Waddle or Tyreek's gone here pretty soon. And so the idea is that Brian Thomas Jr. can be the number 2 outside of Tyreek when you have a Waddle motioning. Brian Thomas Jr. can be the motion guy. You also have who's your favorite running back? I forgot his name off the top of my head, but
I'm not telling you yet.
No, I'm talking about from the Dolphins right now.
A-Chain.
A-Chain, yeah.
A-Chain.
Off the top of my head, I blanked on his name. But he could be the motion guy. You know, you can keep Raheem Mostert as the main lead back. You got a bunch of these guys just going all different places. There's no way you can guard Brian Thomas Jr. If you give him 5 yards of space on a zip, on a freaking whatever you want to do, motion him somewhere, you give him that much space. If he's able to bend around you and you're already having to double Tyreek or shadow Tyreek, and then you have to worry about Waddle and Achane coming out, dude, are you kidding me? It's nuts. Also, the Colts are the team that he's been mocked to the most, and I believe that's 14 or 15.
I would love that too.
My problem is that Pittman is a free agent this year. I think they're going to resign.
They're going to. They have to. Yeah. They will.
And so or a restricted free agent, he could go, not go, but I think he's in a perfect landing spot as the 2 in Indy. And hey, our boy's got a rocket of an arm. He got hurt.
Yeah.
But we love him still. If you got to defend all of those players, all that speed, nah. Yeah. So I love that landing spot too. But number 4 for you.
My number 4 is Troy Franklin from Oregon. I think he is a more well-rounded guy. He could do more for an offense. He operates out of the slot about 20% of the time for his career at Oregon. When you watch Bo Nix I'm literally watching Bo Nix games, and Troy Franklin just does it all for this guy. He does it all. He gets free releases. He gets separation. It's everything that you want. I just think the weight issue, he's 187, 6'3". So he's got a frame to add 10 more pounds. Hopefully he can get up almost close to 200. That'd be wonderful. But he is a guy that I really want on my team. I just think he's an extremely rounded guy, extremely explosive, and has played in big-time football. And I think Troy is one of my flag plants for the year. I think it's going to take a lot for me to move him out of 4. But from what I've been seeing, some projections of him going to, because I'm a little higher than consensus, I think, on Troy Franklin. I think Troy on most wide receiver lists are around 6 or 7. For me, with what Franklin can do from all positions from the X to the Z, it's just he's too well-rounded not to keep it in my top 4 right now. But Brian Thomas can definitely overtake him with the right landing spot.
So what do you have, Brian? Where do you have Brian Thomas?
I have him at 5.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So I won't talk about Troy until we get to where he is, and that's great analysis. Or maybe I will just hint on it here, and then I'll just kind of let it go when it gets to my rankings. Sure. But I love Troy Franklin. I really do. I think that my problem with Troy Franklin is exactly what we're talking about with the neighbors to start the cast, is he's just lumped in with a bunch of these guys. Now, the good side of this is absolutely going to change pre-draft when he's drafted by the Chiefs.
Oh God.
Or he's drafted by the Bills, because here's the thing. He isn't ranked. I mean, you're going to flag plant on Troy Franklin. I don't know if you're flag planting on him because you imagine that where he might land and everything. Ideally, we'd like to rank these guys based off their ability. So if you're saying Troy Franklin's the 4th wide receiver in the class, you're really high on him. You'd be really high on him. And I wouldn't say that he's not there. It's just, in my opinion, when I look at guys that I think are going to be better receivers in the NFL, in my personal opinion, that's going to equate for receivers to better fantasy production. Because it's not like running back. Like receivers, their talent, and what they can do on the field, and also be consistent, is where their fantasy output's going to rise, and where I think this is. That's why I don't have him at 4, or 5 or 6, and you'll see that here coming up. he's good, but he's just a little inconsistent, and his size does scare me a little bit because he is a lot thin.
He's a little lean.
And just like other thin, lean guys that got injured this year, guys that we really love out in Houston, small guys, it takes one time, it takes two times, and that's my problem. George Pickens is lean too, so but Pickens is a little heavier than Troy Franklin, I believe.
I'll just say this: Troy Franklin does everything Malik Neighbors can do, but yards after catch. I would
disagree with that.
Yards after catch, dude. Franklin's is better yards after catch. He's at 6.6 yards a catch of yak, and Neighbors is only at 4.7. So it's just we need to understand. I just think he's an extremely well-rounded player on a high octane offense and he's actually played with a quarterback that's elite. And this was the guy that Bo Nix was leaning on to get shit done. And I just think he is extremely well-rounded. I think he's literally he can do Stephon Diggs things, but has way more speed. And that is what he could take the top off. He's like young Diggs. But Diggs is nowhere near what he used to be right now. But I think he needs to be paired with one. Give him paired with somebody with some size on the other side of him, and he's going to be legitimately a safety blanket for every quarterback that he lands with.
Yeah,
he just makes it easy.
Troy Franklin, to me, seems like he's everything that we want Jalen Hyatt to grow into. And we knew drafting Jalen Hyatt that he was not a first-round talent. But could he grow into because he has size and he has speed, right? So you're right. Troy Franklin is a lot more polished of a receiver.
He does so much more than Hyatt, yeah.
If you were to imagine all the good that he is, Michael Yeager's in here. Let's go, baby girl. I love it.
It's just us. I think it's just our West Coast bias. Maybe I see a lot of Oregon games where I'm at, so I get to see him more, and I feel very comfortable drafting this kid, and I actually love the personality too, and I think he's gonna shock people at the combine on how polished he is when he runs routes right next to all these other guys.
All right, so that's your number 4. So you have Brian Thomas Jr. I spoke
Brian
about
Thomas
him.
5. Yep.
He's 5, so he was my 4. So my 5, and this is a guy who might be slipping ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. Depending on landing spot. And I think that that's really going to decide what I feel and what I love about Adonai Mitchell. AD Mitchell, my guy.
Oh, you son of a gun.
Yeah, he's 5 for me. He's 5.
I love Okay. I thought I was high on Mitchell. Okay, yeah. Sweet.
So I'm about to put him 4. Okay.
Nice.
And so my thing about AD Mitchell is his route or getting open, his win percentage on routes in man and zone coverage are elite.
Oh, yes.
He wins on press coverage. Yes. He gets open. And the thing about him is you haven't seen him with a good quarterback. I like Quinn Ewers, but I wouldn't say he's elite. If I put AD Mitchell on the Kansas City team, it is absolutely. I mean, here's the reality. Malik Neighbors is great and is special, but there are some landing spots that just scream and speak special, and that's Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs. And even as number 2 receivers in those teams, opportunity and just being a guy that can do everything is going to just speak volumes about these guys. So again, you're not going to be able to get a guy like that top 20, right? Top 20 guys are going to go top 20. AD Mitchell isn't looked at as a top 20 guy. And I think that that's just because
he's going to be. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. And we don't know what the real NFL draft is going to do. But I think that these guys know just as well how these mock drafts are looking. And, I mean, if we're smart and we go to mock draft and whatever, we we need to kind of take a look at where we think we're going to get guys. Just like me and you had a conundrum a couple years ago, right? I was not an incredible Drake guy. You know, Drake London was not my guy. Okay,
Yep.
not my guy.
You won. Garrett Wilson, I got it. You won.
Yeah, but my problem is Garrett Wilson at that time was going like 6th, right?
He was.
And so, yeah, you could put your nuts on the table to grab him at 6, or you could also say, let me grab a couple of these guys early. Maybe I can work some trades in my favor. And I never got to work the trades because the guys you like dudded out before. And we're talking fucking what's the gosh? Why am I blanking so much this podcast on Burks? Treylon Burks. Are you kidding me? That guy sucks. So, and I knew he sucked.
He just gets hurt.
I knew he sucked. Okay,
and I drafted him.
I drafted him over Garrett Wilson, not because I valued him over Garrett Wilson,
because you don't stick to your own stuff.
Exactly. In the when my nuts were on the table, I thought I could maybe go and grab Drake London, Treylon Burks, maybe swindle you for Garrett Wilson or whoever else it was, and maybe kind of wheel and deal. And I got caught up
that time.
Okay, yeah, I got caught up in the wheel and deal. My dynasty Michael Yeager has a comment here. My dynasty wide receiver situation is not good. I just want to know what wide receivers have that dog in them. And I'll tell you what, Troy Franklin, that's what Brandon said's got the dog. He's got him ranked 4. I think AD Mitchell at 5, moving up to 4 is my dog. I mean, I think he's a dog. And actually,
dude, I don't mind it.
We got some dogs coming up here.
I don't mind it.
You can't mind it. AD Mitchell wins, man, and he's has not been utilized in any situation. I think he is a more athletic Mike Evans, and that's kind of, it's really tough to say. My only problem is you would love to see him over 200 pounds. You'd really love to. He's not. And so, okay, same knock on him as Troy Franklin, but that extra 10 pounds at that size, and the way he plays the receiver game and the receiver position, he runs every single route good. He hosses the football. He can block. Everything about him's great. Give me him at 5, and depending on where he lands, you could see him at 2. Honestly, you can see him at 2,
dude. Oh man, you're making me mad. I have AD Mitchell as my number 6. So we are not too far apart on that. I thought I was going to be high on him. Because I thought you would have Troy ahead of him because you're a West Coast guy and you've seen a lot of them. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Mitchell has everything that you would like to see. If he lands with Buffalo, I will lose my mind and I'm going to end up moving him way higher. But this is pre-draft. We don't know anything. This is just our eye test on what we think of these players. This stuff can change very quickly and rapidly. And especially because new heights and weights are getting measured right now at the Senior Bowl and then the Combine, and people are coming in small, and people aren't coming in at the size that they talk about and list themselves at. So things can change real quick. But Mitchell is a safe player. I think he's going to be so much better of a pro than college player because of exactly what you said. I think Quinn Ewers is not good. I don't think he's. I think the weapons around Ewers actually elevated him and kept him more afloat than he deserved. And that's just how I feel about it. Unlike where Jaden Daniels, I think he actually elevated people around him a little bit, and Bo Nix elevated some people around him. But I just have Troy as 4, Brian Thomas Jr. for me 5, 6 is Mitchell. And then my 7.
So hold on, because I haven't said my 6 yet. So we're already got your 6. Okay, so my 1 was Marvin, Neighbors 2, Romo Dunze 3, Brian Thomas Jr. 4, 5 AD Mitchell, and 6 is Xavier Legette. My guy. Okay, number 6. Now, yes, I have him over a lot of guys. I got him over Troy Franklin. And you would not like that. Based on your comp. So let me read this here.
Go for it.
Spencer Rattler's safety valve. Okay. Right there is everything that a small quarterback like Spencer Rattler and everything that freaking Bryce Young wants with freaking what's his name again? God, why am I blanking these guys? The receiver we all drafted in the second round kind of dudded out. Why am
Mingo.
what Mingo? God, I'm blanking on all these guys. Jonathan Mingo, Xavier Legette. Being a safety valve for a little guy is really everything that Bryce Young needed and wanted in Jonathan Mingo. Now, that's why I think I really like a Xavier Legette to a Carolina Panthers, because somebody that can be trusted to be always out there, being aggressive, running everything, going up to catch everything, a return specialist. Let me tell you this. He was tracked over 22 miles per hour, which was top 5 in college football. Now, we originally thought he was 6'3", 227. Just came out now in the Senior Bowl, right? What was it? 6'1".
Yeah, he's 6'1". The weight is
probably
fine.
He's probably on the tall side of 6'1". I mean, you know, it
was 6'1" even. But yeah.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe.
Hey, they're the one that measured it. I'm just telling you, they measured it. You can fudge all you want, but I'm just telling you, like,
it's pretty.
The guy
easy.
came in smaller.
He's a return guy. He averaged over 25 yards a return. Name me somebody that every NFL team needs. That's the guy, right?
Sure.
His catch radius is phenomenal, you know. So thinking he was 6'3" originally, you could see that catch radius. Now knowing that he's 6'1", what's unique about him that no other 6'1" receiver can even get up and go for? I mean, when we're talking about 6'1" guys that look like they play like 6'3", that's what you want, right? Instead, sometimes you got 6'4" guys that can't even play like they're 6 foot. Going up for the football, right? He's laterally shifty. His routes aren't necessarily as sharp, but neither was DK Metcalf's coming out. Right. Everybody's going to comp him to DK Metcalf because that's literally the presence he has on the field. I think he's better than DK Metcalf coming out of college. I mean, DK slipped to the second round, almost the third round, right? And he fell because he had a lot negative about him. I mean, he didn't run routes very well. He wasn't viewed as a guy that would absolutely take the ball from every single person that he's going for. He's a slant guy. He runs 2 routes. But hey, we see how successful a guy like DK Metcalf can be in a scheme. And I feel like we got shown this by South Carolina. When he's the number 1 guy, you throw it up to him, he's going to come down. He separates like Drake London because he ends up being so... He's not like a dynamic separator, but what he does in his uniqueness is what makes him separate. The guy that he is, the aggressive separator. So Drake London is not an aggressive separator, but his size and his presence on the field is what allows him to separate. He's also long. He goes for the football. I mean, big slot is his place. He's a Deebo Samuel-esque guy who you want. I just think I'm going to take Xavier Legette on every football team.
That's a flag plant. That's a legitimate flag plant. I get that. He's a fun guy to watch for sure. He's just a guy that's worked his way through college football and it's kind of just worked his tail off to get to the starting lineup. He really didn't have a lot of success early. He was really a special teams guy, and then he got the trust, and then Rattler unleashed him. And that's pretty much what happened with him. But I get that he looks like a superhero. I love guys that look like superheroes too. I just been burned on guys that have looked like superheroes like him. And I get that. I like him. I just don't have him as high as you.
But I'll be happy to flag plant him at 6.
But you told me you were going to flag plant him a long time ago, and that makes a lot of sense because you went with it.
Yep,
sure.
I have him 1 above Troy Franklin. Now, that's probably going to change because you're right. Troy Franklin does a lot of things well. But my issue, and now that I'm at 7, I've got Troy Franklin at 7. My whole thing about Troy Franklin is just his size. I would prefer somebody who
6'3", 187 is not too bad, dude.
I'm not saying it's bad. I get a little enamored with these size guys only when they play this aggressive level of football that I just think And I said this about Josh Allen when nobody liked him. I was like, man, but Josh Allen has grit, tenacity. He goes out there. He's a gamer. He wants to launch the ball down the field. Xavier Legette, dude, when you toss the ball up to him, like, like if he's around that area, he's going to come down with the football. And if a quarterback can trust a guy on a slant route, that's great. Now, I just think Troy Franklin needs a little bit of space. I don't think he's coming off I just think he's not going to be utilized in a way at the next level that's going to be conducive to his ultimate success unless Troy Franklin comes out and wins all over the place. And I don't think that he won't win all over the place. I'm just saying I might try to go and bet pre-draft on a guy that I think has more dog in him. And that's going to be my determining factor.
I got you.
At this point. So Xavier,
I want to talk about a guy that's a straight dog.
So
this guy is a junkyard dog.
I got Legette at 6, Troy Franklin at 7. You talked about Troy Franklin at 4. So I think we're up to your 7 now.
Yep. 7 for me is Devontae Walker. 6'2". Quintez, I'm sorry, too many Tezes. I always write him as Tez Walker. But he's 6'2", 200 pounds. This was the main guy that Drake May was throwing the ball to this last year. He started out at Kent State, first 2 years of his college career, and then transferred over to North Carolina. He saw 66 targets for 41 receptions for 62% reception percentage. Just 699 yards, 17 yards per catch with 7 tuds in his first year with Drake May. And he decided to leave because Drake May left, so he's gone too. And there's some mocks out there that he is going to be a late first to mid-second. I just like this guy's tenacity, and he makes catches in small areas. Meaning when there's tight coverages, he somehow figures out a way to contort his body to get that ball and make it happen. He still gets separation on a regular basis, but in the red zone, where I noticed it most with him is that he is so good down the seam, it's unreal. He has great timing with Drake May. Drake May definitely Drake May made him look a little bit better, but I just like the way this guy plays football. I like the size. I think he blocks well too. So that's going to keep him on the field as a professional. He will not be getting taken off the field, and I think he can do it. He's not even close to a finished product yet, but he has enough tools and size and weight that I like. And if he runs anywhere underneath the 4.5, I'm gonna love it because that is what he looks like. He looks like a high 4.4 guy on tape. I'm just hoping for confirmation. If he doesn't do that, he's going to be dropping down a little bit. But this kid is smart. He sits down in some zone defenses, and he's been he was a good outlet for Drake May on plays where Drake had nothing he could do besides throw it in the air to this guy, and he figured it out. So I just like the way this guy plays. He has some dog to him. I think he's a good, complete player. And the guy that some people have ahead of him, Keon Coleman. You and I are both not very high on Keon Coleman. He separates at a much better clip than a Keon Coleman. That's why he outranks Keon Coleman for me.
So I actually thought you'd have Tez Walker a little higher, to be honest with you, because you said he's your 7, right?
Yeah.
So I have Troy Franklin at 7, and I just think the guys that I have ahead of him are all guys that, if you look at Tez Walker on his top end is better than all these guys. And the cool part about Tez Walker is he's absolutely maybe a first rounder. Maybe. Now, there's a lot of reasons he's not polished. He's not.
I'm not saying
but
he
he's
is.
got the dog in him, and I love that. And that's exactly why I've already ranked my 7. He is at 8 for me.
Yep.
So we're only one spot off, and absolutely should go ahead of the guys that you just mentioned and a lot of other guys. The thing that I don't, what I do like about Tez Walker, dog, okay, played with an elite level QB, okay. Whoa, did you see that? I just put my thing up and like Sleeper did a regular thumb up for me. I don't know how that happened. That was so weird. Sorry, that was bad for the listeners, the viewers. I just saw that. Tez Walker, dog, 2, play with an elite QB. So that's great. I really like that. Bailed out an elite QB a lot. We might be talking about that. Unfortunately, we're going to have to cut this pod short. We're going to extend our next pod to our quarterbacks and our running backs because we did so well with our wide receivers that we're doing here. And we even got more to say here coming up.
Yeah.
But bailed out Drake May a lot. I mean, to be honest, a lot. Now, a bit because he didn't separate. I mean, when you're talking about those middle routes over the middle and stuff like that, he didn't separate that well, but Drake May put a freaking missile only where Tez Walker can catch it, and he comes down with it. And I love that. If you put on his Kent State tape against Georgia the year before, you can see some stuff too.
You can see it. You can see it. I just think he's going to go under the radar, and I think he's going to get steam late in our process. And 6'1", 197, perfect. That's great. I love that. That's perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping to see. I just want him to run under a 4.5. If it's 4.50, that's fine.
Oh, listen, the word is he's running 4.3. Like low 4.4. They're saying he's like one of the fastest guys in the combine.
If he goes 4.3, man, I'm gonna have to really think about where I'm gonna put him because
the last thing I like about Tez Walker is he's getting better. You know, go from Kent State isn't necessarily a small school, but like he wasn't recruited to the top schools. Then he transfers into a top school, and North Carolina is not like an incredible top school, but you just so happen upon a QB factory, you know, which is really good there, which is kind of sometimes a knock to Drake May. And we'll talk about that when we get to Drake May. But again, he's only getting better. 6'1", 197 would like a little bit more size on both sides, but when you see him actually run 4.3 or low 4.4, and if you watch that Kent State Georgia game, you'll see him. He takes he literally takes a 1-yard screen to the house, blazing past guys like Keely Ringo, who are playing NFL football right now. Now, also Keely Ringo's not a first-round pick, so that's the things that I get. And why Tez Walker for me is 8, because he's not as polished. But
he's not. He's not.
He has speed. He has grit. He has tenacity.
If he lands with a good, like a team that I can trust with him, that if he lands in Carolina, I hate it. If he lands in, Buffalo or a legitimate or Bengals or somebody that can groom wide receivers and have known to do it, I'm going to be so in on Tez. It's going to it might be ridiculous how high I put him. So
I think we're at 9 and 10 here, wrapping up the podcast, right? So my 1, Marvin, 2, Neighbors, 3, Rome, Adunze, 4, Brian Thomas Jr., 5, A.D. Mitchell, 6, Xavier Leggett, 7, Troy Franklin, 8, Tez Walker. And what was your top 8?
I have Marvin, Malik, Rome, Troy, Brian Thomas, A.D. Mitchell, Tez, and then it's going to be Keon Coleman, Xavier Leggett.
So that was your 9 and 10. We'll talk a little bit quick.
What worries me is 1 year production with Leggett. If he had 2 years of legit production, I would be pushing him way up.
So Legett's 9 or Legett's 10?
Legett's 10 for me.
Okay, so you have Keon Coleman 1 above.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so me and you are absolutely low on Keon Coleman. You have him 9. I have him 10.
Because I have to. I feel like I have to.
So he is Treylon Burks all over again, right?
Honestly, he's Drake London without the elite athleticism of Drake London from the high point. I think Drake London has a lot more of a route tree than this kid. They play the game similar, but I just think Drake had way more polish in his game, and he had, just more creativity within his routes. This guy is more of just an alpha guy that I'm just going to take the ball from you. And that old Brandon would have, I valued that way too much in the past, way too much. And I'm learning, dude. I'm learning about it. And I just feel that he is a landmine that I would have stepped on years prior. And I don't think I'm going to let myself do that this year.
So the thing that I get a little nervous about is not taking a chance on him. That's why he's still 10. That's why he's still 10. So in my ranks, number 9 and 10 here are guys that a lot of other guys have 1, 2, or 3 or 4 or 5, somewhere in that top 5. And that's why I'm just going to put them at 9 or 10. And then what I'd like to do is talk about a couple guys that you may like to end the podcast out that are a little over that.
Sure.
But Xavier Worthy is 9 for me. There are some pod sources out there that have them 3 or 4. There's just something in short that I say or that I've written here. It's a lot, but Xavier Worthy also has this weird bend thing that he does, that Brian Thomas Jr. does. And I want to say that we might grow that as technique, because these speed guys are bending around the hands. So where they have understood is they're not that good at being aggressive at that 5-yard point, or maybe they're battling hands downfield. They're not that good. So why even go to that point? Yeah, maybe the old NFL has tried to jam those guys there, but maybe with putting more hands on guys, more flags being thrown, maybe they've learned to just bend around it. And if they bend, maybe somebody grabs them, or, I don't know. So I don't know the technique, but they got that bend thing. Xavier Worthy, the elite speed. Everyone's going to talk about Xavier Worthy's elite speed. My problem is in space, he has good yak ability. When he's locked up, ain't going nowhere. Okay. His suddenness is great. You have to play off of him a little bit. So the cool part is that he does great when there is off coverage. It's just when he doesn't have off coverage, and in the NFL, they're going to scheme that. I mean, you put a big corner on him, you're going to be fine. Even a guy like Devin Witherspoon, who isn't big, but is going to be violent with him at the line of scrimmage, it's going to knock him off his route. And Xavier Worthy is, and this is going to hurt your soul, but Devonta Smith, we saw what happened with him when he was called upon to be the number 1. It just ain't there. It ain't there. The dynamism that they have are stifled in the NFL when you have either over coverage or jammed at the line. Now, Devonta Smith still can win, but we're talking about a Heisman Trophy winner. We're talking about one of the best receivers to come out of college football for his size. I mean, so we're talking about somebody that has those elite traits. Does Xavier Worthy come close to Devonta Smith? No. Not in my opinion. No. But at 9, I'm going to take a shot on him because there's some other guys, and it's more going to depend about landing spot. Keon Coleman, we both agree, sucks. But Keon Coleman has this weird thing that the NFL does with defensive ends. They look at all the intangibles about this guy and say, I can coach that. I can't coach 5'7", 185, hoping that we hit a diamond in the rough. But I can coach 6'4", 225, or whatever Keon Coleman is.
They think they can. Yeah.
They think they can, right? So great. My problem is I'm going to throw some darts on them, but that's my problem. What are they? Are they just darts? And then I'm a sales mastermind in fantasy football, so I always think, okay, well, if we're 2.2 here, what could I get for that? And then that wheel starts chugging along because, like you said, we've been burnt by these big guys with just intangibles, and unfortunately, I'm out on Keon Coleman this year. 10th overall, might throw some darts on him. If I get him at 2.8 because other people don't like him, great. I'll take him there as probably my Mendoza line. But how many guys could you get with that second round pick knowing Keon Coleman's there to guys that like him? I don't know. So I figure, hey, can I grab Michael Pittman somehow? Can I package my pick in a player for Michael Pittman and just bail out on Keon? Those are what I'm thinking about. So Brandon, we're done with our top 10 receivers. If you got a guy or two you'd like to speak shortly about, we're at an hour here, just guys that you like deeper in the draft.
I mean, for real NFL, I love McConkey. I think that kid can play football.
Lad McConkey, Georgia.
Yeah, Lad McConkey. Yeah, the lad can play. He's a real NFL player. I just don't think he's going to be a fantasy football producer that some people have him really high. Some people really love this kid, but he just measured in 2 inches shorter than he was reported by Georgia. So he's 5'11", not 6'1". That's a big deal.
5'11", what? 5'11", what was his weight? Do you know?
I didn't see the weight. I just saw the height. 5'11", 2 inches shorter. It's just I like there is no better route runner in the draft than this kid. Like, this kid separates like nobody's business. He reminds me a lot of Julian Edelman. If Bill Belichick is the guy that gets him, then I love him. But like outside of that, then probably not. But I do like Malachi Corley. He's 5'11", 210 as well. He's a little thicker, but he is a highly productive kid out of Western Kentucky. Can route run like crazy. So those are just 2 names I kind of like that are smaller guys that I think will end up dropping in drafts that people will pull up their name and go, oh, he's 5'11". I'm not going to get him. They'll just draft somebody that's 6'1".
Weighed 187 at the Senior Bowl here. So that's about what he was. That's about what he was, 5'11", 185. The thing about these undersized receivers is, you really used to be out on them. You really did. But nowadays, they're finding ways to utilize these people. Roll. And the roles are only developing in the high-end side for fantasy football because you're seeing it. Okay, you're starting to finally see guys that might be given a role or given some type, and they've actually done well with it. The problem is we're still at the level where you really need somebody to buy into that person, right? Tank Dell was bought into, and he's doing well. So,
but he could beat deep. Like, Vlad is more of intermediate, closer to the line of scrimmage.
Vlad is a great route runner. He's not known for his speed. Can he still burn people deep? Sure.
Separates like a mile.
Schemes still, there's still broken coverages. There's still ways to get behind defenses, but he's not known for his speed. But he is absolutely one of the best route runners in the class. Everything he does is good. I mean, there's like it's like Pacheco when we watch
football. People will love him. Like, he's gonna have a job for the rest of it. He's gonna have a 10-year career in the NFL, and people will love him better as a real NFL player than fantasy player. So
those are 2 guys that you got: Malachi Corley, Western Kentucky, 5'11", 210. So that's the size you'd love. Like Greg Dortch, he said earlier.
There you go.
Greg Dortch is a good name because, but this is where post draft it starts to separate some of these guys because because we all know that. So Malachi Corley, I did a lot of research on Malachi Corley. Don't be fooled by Malachi Corley. That's all I want to say. Is a lot of people feel and the disrespect on JSN is pretty tough right now. He's playing third receiver in a scheme that barely knows how to use him. Wait until JSN gets his opportunity. He will come back into the light as a true number 2 or number 1, depending on what. I don't think he's a number 1, but he's a high-end number 2. Okay. He can be a number 1, I think. I think
he can.
He's just not going to get the chance to. And unless he leads Seattle, unless some things switch around, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yep.
But when you hear a lot of people talk about Malachi Corley, you will hear them talk about him in a light of JSN, and it's really not there. So don't be fooled. The 2 guys that I like a lot, and it's tough to like these guys because they get no love. But Jermaine Burton from Alabama, 6', 200. I comp him directly to Doug Baldwin. The reason why I love the Doug Baldwin comp, and if you watch his tape now, that if I tell you his name, you tell him to go watch tape. So he's Alabama guy. Originally, I believe he transferred to Alabama, so he wasn't Alabama originally. But in Seattle, that's where I'm from. We used to call Doug Angry Doug because everything he does it with like this little chip on his shoulder.
Mhm.
And if you watch Jermaine Burton and the way that he plays, man, you kind of wonder why he's not ranked higher. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit of production issues, and maybe it's size because he's 6', 200. So maybe there's a lot behind it. But when you watch him play football, I love it. Everything that he does, I love. So is he going to be a number 2? Maybe. I don't know. But I'm looking at third round guys that you could draft that might actually produce you 800 yards, might actually be worth a third round pick. If you put him in a scheme where you just let Jermaine Burton get open and kind of run his stuff, and if you can kind of feed him a little bit, I think he can be successful. Every time Jermaine Burton catches the ball, he turns around and looks for contact. And I just love that. Like, even on a 3-yard out, he turns around. He knows he's not getting any more yards, but he'll throw his stiff arm and punch this dude. And it's just amazing. And I really love it.
Yeah.
And my second guy, here's the thing. You didn't like this guy's father coming out. Then he was a Hall of Fame receiver. We're talking about Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son out of USC. He has everything. Watch him. He's got it all. There's nothing that Brendan Rice can't do. I mean, it's not to say that he couldn't, get better at things, but 6'3", 205, you like the size. We were knocking guys like A.D. Mitchell and Troy Franklin because they were 6'3" and couldn't get over 200 pounds. You got a guy that is listed over 200 pounds originally, so.
But nowhere near as fast, though.
Hopefully that's great. Well, Jerry Rice wasn't known for being fast.
Understood, but he's not his daddy.
Yes, I know. But again, just like the pedigree we spoke about earlier with Marvin Harrison Jr., is you can tell that this guy has studied getting off the ball to create separation, right? His route running is great. I wouldn't say great, but it's good. His route releases are good. I just think as a third round pick, as a third round receiver, a fourth round receiver, he's better than Michael Wilson. Way better than Michael Wilson. Way better than Greg Dortch. Way better than Jalen Tolbert, who is the third option on the Cowboys team. That's it. I mean, those are guys I like. And we just scratched the surface.
We barely even talked about anything in depth. If we really didn't even go nearly as deep as I wanted to on each guy. I knew we weren't going to be able to get everything we wanted to do. But yeah, I think it's a good start. Maybe we could sneak another pot in this week to finish out the quarterback, running back positions. So we have that done, and then maybe next week we can start talking about some mock drafts and stuff.
Yes, Brandon, I mean, we really haven't scratched the surface here. I mean, we got running backs to get to, quarterbacks to get to, and then more of the wide receivers. We left out guys that are in top 10. Jalen Polk is one that we left out of our top 10s because just the class is so great. So, Brandon, Adam, what's going on in your life right now? I mean, you got your daughter is going skiing, or not skiing, hockey, right? She loves hockey. You're a hockey guy. You got that going on. Are you on the world team right now?
No, I'm officially retired and old. So I've been put to pasture by Team USA, and it's just what it is. They took me out back and put a bullet in me, and it's what it is. But I'm still playing club stuff. We'll be playing for our third straight national title here in a month. So
That's awesome to hear.
We got to go
And I've
3
been
straight.
coaching high school wrestling. Our team has done great this year. I've got the sub-regionals, regionals, and state coming up in the next 3 weeks. So once that all settles, once the Senior Bowl comes, once the Combine comes, we're hitting this thing full force. Sorry we were a little late to some rookies, but that was our top 10 wide receiver rankings for Brandon Adam. I am Flex Matt, and we are the DFS Army Fantasy Football Show, and that was our first look at the 2024 rankings. We will see you guys next time.